Before we get the show started, big announcement. EarthX 2025 tickets are now live. Join 4,000 other attendees, including prime ministers, ambassadors, UN associates, Fortune 500 CEOs, media personalities, all for 4 days of an amazing conference with panels, speakers, presentations, breakout rooms, calls to action, networking. Basically, I went there this past year and it was one of the best events I've ever been to. We will be hosting one full day of the event with a focus on the future of sustainability in business. If you're interested in speaking or sponsoring, contact me, Dylan Welch here. Still have a few speaking spots available. If you're not and you just want to attend and meet amazing people, get inspired, be sure to register today. Anyway, let's get this show started. What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Green Podcast. I'm Dylan Welch. It's been a little while since I've recorded one, so I'm excited because a really good friend of mine and a super interesting, awesome person is joining us today, Ellen Spooner. So a little bit about Ellen and I. I don't even know where to begin. We go way back. We have like friends in common that introduced us. We both live in San Diego. We both love to scuba dive. We're super active. And Ellen does some really amazing things for her work in the blue economy efforts, in media, in strategic communications. And what I really love in a person is when they have a lot of different passions and they're very active and they're doing all these different things. And that's what I love about Ellen. Every time I talk to her, she's like boxing or she's scuba diving or she's traveling to some cool place. So I'm excited to have Ellen on the show today and talk a little bit more about her. So Ellen, what's up? Thanks for being here.
Morning. Thank you so much, Dylan, for such a wonderful introduction. I'm like, wow, I should start off my day this way every day.
For, a low monthly retainer, I can be your hype man. We can discuss the details after this.
Excellent.
But so tell the audience just a little bit about yourself, your background, your passion, your interests, and some of the work you're doing.
Sure. So I like to consider myself an ocean optimist. My official title is Media and Strategic Communications Manager at the Waite Institute, which is a nonprofit based here in San Diego, where we partner with island nations to help them advance their blue economy efforts, develop marine spatial plans, and sustainable fisheries. And I'm very thankful to work at this organization as it aligns with my sort of ocean optimism motif. It's a movement that I'm helping to lead where we focus on solutions because all of the news always focuses on the problems, but we want to highlight how people can make a difference. And so through that, I started a podcast. I'm sharing lots of ocean optimism stories on social media through my work and through just living my life here in San Diego.
Hell yeah. Well, thank you for we need more positive information out there. And that's what I love about, kind of your goal with the Ocean Optimism podcast. And when I listen to you speak, you're like, hey, it can be a pretty scary place out there. There's a lot of negative news that scares people. And I'm here to just bring you some positive information. And I think people really feed off of that and appreciate that. And sometimes like you need that positive information in the world to sort of like give that glimmer of hope and be like, all right, we can do this. We can make a positive change. So I appreciate that. And I like how you're using sort of like mass communication, podcast communication technology to spread your word. So thank you for that. How, real quick, to kind of like way back it up, how did you get into sort of this marine biology world? A lot of people, growing up, it's like, what do you want to be? A fireman, an astronaut, marine biologist? And like, no one really knows what that is. So how did you kind of go down that route and how did you end up at the Waite Institute?
Yeah, it's so funny that you say that because whenever I tell people what I do, that's always the first thing they say. I wanted to be a marine biologist when I grew up, and you actually did it. Um, and I'll be honest with you, it wasn't a straightforward path. It was definitely a winding path. I grew up in Arizona where there's not much ocean, But my family would always take vacations to the beaches in Mexico and in San Diego. And I'll never forget this one moment. I must have been like 10 years old, and I was kayaking with my dad out in the ocean, and we saw a pod of dolphins off in the distance. And we were like, oh, let's try and go catch them. So we were like paddling, trying to get closer, and they kept getting further and further away. And we were like, all right, it's not meant to be, we'll just watch them from afar. And the second that I set my paddle down, I saw one swim right underneath my kayak. And I was like, whoa, these are like huge, like way bigger than you think they are. And it was just like that like awe-inspiring moment and that feeling that you like never forget when you have a moment like that in nature. And so from that moment on, I was like, okay, I'm gonna find a way to dedicate my career to being in and around the ocean. And so growing up in Arizona and, wanting to do what was most accessible to me, I went to the University of Arizona where I studied ecology and evolutionary biology. And they actually did have some classes that you could take in marine biology, and they had a marine biology club. So like any opportunity I could find to get involved, I did. And so we would take field trips down to Mexico. And actually, one of the classes that I took was learning how to identify algae species. And another funny story is we were bringing back a bunch of samples of algae from Mexico to the US to like identify them in the lab. And the Border Patrol agents were like, what is this bucket of like stinky mess? And our professor like had to like take 30 minutes to explain to the Border Patrol agents what we were trying to do and that it was all in the name of science. So that was pretty funny. And then I graduated and went to the University of Michigan because a professor that I was working with in undergrad knew a professor at the University of Michigan who was studying fisheries in the Great Lakes. And so there I studied muskellunge, which are a large predatory fish, and I did a diet analysis of what they eat in the Great Lakes because a lot of fishermen thought that these muskies were eating all of the fish species that they also fish for. I found that that wasn't true. In fact, they actually eat a lot of fish species that fishermen don't care about at all. So that was kind of my first introduction into the whole fishing industry. And from there, I got what's called the Knaus Marine Policy Fellowship. And that brings people with marine science backgrounds into the federal government to do more policy and communications work. And while I was doing my master's, I realized I was spending all of this time collecting data. I spent like 8 hours a day on a boat, like grinding and then writing it all up, analyzing the data to try and get it published in a scientific article just so that maybe like two people would read it, like think about when was the last time you read a scientific article? Nobody reads them unless you're in that field. And so that's what really drew me to the communications aspect of my work now. And that's kind of why I pivoted when I took that fellowship, is because I learned about all of these really cool projects that people were working on and like making a difference, but nobody else knew about them. And so when I got that fellowship, I started working at NOAA, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. I kind of describe it as like NASA, but for the ocean, for people who aren't familiar with it. And that's where I really understood how the US federal government really manages our waters. And a really cool ocean optimism story that I want to share that I just read about is because of efforts by NOAA and other international organizations, the Pacific bluefin tuna population has just been found to recover to levels that they have never seen before. And so that just shows you that, there are efforts underway that are making a difference. And tuna is like one of the biggest species that migrates across the entire Pacific Ocean. It's really difficult to manage. And so if we can help that population grow back, think about what else we can do. And so I did that for about 5 years. And then when the pandemic hit, my job, as everybody else's, went remote. And so I took that opportunity to move to sunny San Diego, California, where it had always been my dream to live here. And I was working remotely for about a year and a half until this job opportunity opened up at the Wait Institute where I work now. And it just seemed like such a cool opportunity. You get to travel to island nations, work with really cool people, and learn about different cultures and help them achieve their own goals of, sustainably developing their ocean economies and helping them protect really important key habitats that are not just important for like the ecosystem, but also for their culture. Like, I think one of the most beautiful things that I love about this job is understanding how Pacific Islanders connect with the ocean and they actually consider it like a part of themselves and not separate. I feel like the best description that I've seen of that makes it cool is the second movie, Avatar. I don't know if you've seen that movie. Where they like literally the whales are like their sisters. And that's not exactly how it is, but it's very similar in Pacific Island cultures. And just seeing how different people and how different cultures experience the ocean just brings that to a new level for me. So, yeah, that's kind of my winding path of how I got from the desert to the ocean, but it's been a journey.
Yeah, that's amazing. I think one thing that I find really impressive with you is you have kind of these aha moments throughout your life, when you're kayaking with your dad, to when you're on the boat doing those 8 hours a day of research, to COVID, you like have these moments and then you pivot and like make decisions and like act on it, which I think is really impressive. So it's really cool to just see and hear and learn about your path and your journey and how you kind of like made it come to fruition. So I'm excited to learn and hear about these next, aha moments you have leading, further in your career. Tell me a little bit about like, the blue economy efforts that you're working on right now, because I know, with your current job, you just are working with these amazing people, these amazing organizations, these amazing government, leaders. And so what are you kind of seeing in that space that like you're optimistic about or you're excited about or you want to share?
Yeah. So the blue economy is a new sort of field. And so people are kind of still trying to figure out what is that? What does that mean? What does it mean, blue economy? And essentially, what it means is the sustainable use and development of ocean industries. So, for example, offshore wind farms or sustainable aquaculture or sustainable ecotourism. And I think something that makes me extremely hopeful and I like to say optimistic about this whole new blue economy space is that it's really rapidly growing and there are being everyday new connections are being made in terms of how people can maintain and sustain livelihoods because that's essential. We need to have a roof over our heads. We need to have food on our plates. We need to have growth opportunities in terms of business. I'm very much supportive of that. And we're finding more and more ways to connect that while also building a healthy ocean. I think a great example of that is actually in our very own backyard here in San Diego. The Port of San Diego, I had the opportunity to interview one of the commissioners on my Ocean Optimism podcast about the Blue Economy Accelerator that we have here. And the Port of San Diego actually has a really great opportunity for businesses who are wanting to get started but need that sort of seed funding to get them going. And so one of those organizations started to grow kelp in the Port of San Diego. And so this Blue Economy Accelerator gave them the money to get started. And it ended up being a win-win situation because they're growing kelp in the Port of San Diego, which helps remove toxins and pollutants from the water, because you all know ports are like heavy industrial areas. And so it helps to naturally clean them up. But then at the same time, they can also sell that kelp to then be made into other products. A really cool new one that I learned about is paper. People are making paper out of kelp products. And so there's just more and more and more stories that are coming out about how we can sustainably advance our efforts to build businesses and maintain people's livelihoods, but also at the same time have a healthy ocean. And so that's just really exciting for me.
Okay, so I'm going to first ask you a question. I'm going to put you on the spot, and
Okay.
then I'm going to ramble a little bit to the audience while you think of your answer. So the question is if you had, say this blue accelerator gave you $1 million, what would you do with it? Okay. So think about that for
Okay.
a second. Now, I'll talk to the audience while you can think of your idea. I don't want you to have to blurt something out. So, Ellen and I got coffee a couple of weeks ago, and we are just kind of chatting and talking. And one thing like got us really excited. We were both like, one, we live in San Diego. It's an expensive place. So, like, you have to make money somehow. But we also like want to enjoy our lives, and we don't just want to be like workaholics stuck in an office to make money. And then three, we want to like have a career that gives back in some way. And I think that's what, the Ocean Optimism podcast, green.org, me and Ellen, and a lot of people out there want is just sort of that like trifecta. And I think that's ultimately like what leads to a lot of happiness in life is if you can find a way to one, live financially well, make money, you have to these days. Two, do something that you're passionate about for work. And then three, like live a life, as Ellen kind of does, and I hope to, and a lot of other people here that I talk to at green.org of like different passions, travel, exercise, fitness, like that whole well-rounded lifestyle. If you can do those three things and like build your life around that, I think that's like ultimately the key to finding happiness in life. So that was a little takeaway that Ellen and I had a couple of weeks ago when we met up. Now I'm going to bring it back to Ellen. Ellen, if you had $1 million, someone gave you a check right now, what would you do with it?
Oof. What a question. I was trying to think of like one specific thing that I would do if somebody were to give me $1 million right now. But I think it would want to be some sort of combination of starting to develop offshore wind farms or some sort of renewable energy project here in San Diego, because one of the issues that a lot of offshore wind farms face is the need to develop facilities on the coastline to receive that power. And at the same time, where you develop those facilities really matters because you're impacting the communities where that's at. And so, if there would be some way to develop a facility in partnership with the Port of San Diego to receive like offshore wind farm energy or some sort of renewable energy source that also offered an educational opportunity for underserved communities in San Diego to learn about, ocean conservation efforts and blue economy efforts, and for kids, honestly, to come up with their own business ideas. If there was a way to merge all of that, like a facility that could help bring in the renewable energy while also offering an opportunity for underserved communities to learn from. And then also, I really think that AI is going to be huge. I mean, I think we all know that it's going to be. And I think most people are afraid of AI, but I think what we really need to do is instead of staying away from it and being afraid of it, we need to step into the ring and sort of help shape the future that it can create. because I do think there are incredible opportunities with it. And so somehow using AI to help us become more efficient in our energy uses, develop renewable energy, and offer opportunities for underserved kids and communities to build their own businesses. Like one of the really cool things that I read was, we can't ask kids these days, what do you want to be when you grow up? Because we don't know what the future is going to hold, but we can ask them, what problems do you want to solve? And I think when we allow for these opportunities to come together, we can really come up with creative solutions for a lot of the problems we're facing. So I hope that answers your question of how I would use $1 million.
Yeah, that's a really honestly good answer. So kind of building out the infrastructure and then educating like the communities around how to sort of maximize it, turn it into entrepreneurial endeavors, and then also being forward thinking into future technology and how to kind of tap into that to like grow it on an exponential level. Damn, that's a really good answer. I'm sure there's some rich people listening to this and some VCs. $1 million isn't that much to some of you out there. I know it. So reach out to Ellen. I know you guys invest in CEOs and founders and entrepreneurs. So Ellen, that's a really cool answer, honestly. Appreciating you getting put on the spot like that and coming up with that.
Thanks.
Real quick, kind of before we go, what is sort of the, next steps for you? What do you have coming down the pipeline? What's in the near future for you?
Yeah, I'm just really excited to continue to advance this ocean optimism movement via my work and my own podcast, and, with the hope to inspire others. And so I continue to push to help these island nations advance their sustainable ocean economy efforts and preserving the really important marine habitats and cultures that are so beautiful that they have. And at the same time, trying to find new avenues of inspiration and getting more and more people involved and letting them know that when you do take action, it does make a difference. And so, yeah, that's my goals for the future.
Amazing. I think my biggest takeaway from this is if you're a father and you're listening, go out and take your daughter kayaking. You never know if that leads to some aha moments in a 10-year-old and then they grow up and can be, an amazing person like Ellen. So get out there, make some moments, make some memories, make some aha moments. And yeah, here we are. So Ellen, thank you for being here today. Bright and early. I asked Ellen to join me super early this morning on a Wednesday. Still drinking our coffee and getting the day started, but thank you again. I appreciate it. I appreciate our friendship. I love like everything you're doing. I just love how you're like a super well-rounded, ambitious, smart, hardworking person trying to do good things. Um, so keep doing it. And if you're a VC or an investor out there and you've got $1 million and you're ready to help make some good things happen, reach out to Ellen and cut that check.
Thank you so much, Dylan. I really appreciate the opportunity to come on this podcast and hopefully spread the message of ocean optimism. And it's so funny that you say, go take your kids out on a kayak, because everybody always asks me, like, okay, well, what can I do? How can I get involved? And the first thing that I always say is just go enjoy nature. There's nothing more motivating to take care of it than when you experience the joy of it yourself. And so, yeah. That's my message for everyone.
Yeah. Turn off this podcast, go look around, go into the mountains and hike, people. No, I'm
Exactly.
just kidding. Keep listening. Listen to every episode and then sponsor it. No, I'm just kidding. um,
Listen while you're hiking. You can do both.
yes, there we go. The perfect combination.
Yeah.
Ellen, thank you again. Appreciate you coming out today. I'm sure we'll be hanging out and seeing each other soon, but I'm glad we were able to kind of share your story and share what you're working on with the green audience. And to everyone who listens to the podcast, who supports the show, who shares it, who reaches out, I appreciate you guys. Ultimately my goal with this podcast and green.org and everything I'm doing is to just bring you people like Ellen, inspiring leaders, trying to do good things when it comes to, building businesses, giving back to the planet, and just living, an overall good, healthy, happy life. Hopefully you got something good out of this, and we'll see you on the next episode. Thank you.
I actually have a question for you. If you're trying to bring together a bunch of inspiring leaders, I heard rumor on the street that you're organizing something where people could have the opportunity to hear from more individuals. I don't know if you
Yes,
can talk about that.
a shameless plug for my own things I'm working on. Thank you, Ellen.
I'm here to support it. We're supporting each other.
Yeah, thank you. Actually, appreciate you bringing that up. For anyone listening, this past April, right now it's July 2024. I just went to this amazing event in Dallas, Texas called EarthX 2024, 4-day conference where they had over 4,000 attendees, prime ministers, ambassadors, Fortune 500 CEOs, scientists, green venture capitalists, all kind of coming together and sharing, how we can all work together to make the world a better place, build our businesses, basically everything we talked about on this podcast today. They invited me to come host a full day of one of their days at the EarthX 2025 event. So I really hope to see you there. Right now, got about 8-9 months to kind of plan it, but my goal is to just bring together the most inspiring, successful, smart, ambitious leaders to come up on stage, give them 15-20 minutes, kind of TED Talk style presentations, panels, workshops, and just get people inspired to go out and, continue to grow their business, their careers, their lives. So, Ellen, you're obviously invited to be a speaker. We've still got some time, so let me know if you're in. And if you're listening, would love to see you there. You can reserve your tickets on green.org, on my Instagram profile in the bio, or if you go to earthx.org, you can buy tickets there. But big picture, I went this past year and I walked away just super inspired, so excited. I made some really good connections that I'm working with now. So that sounds like your bread and butter. Hopefully we'll see you there.
Well, I know where I'll be on Earth Day 2025.
Woo, let's
Sounds
do it.
awesome.
Yeah. Thanks, Ellen. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Dylan.
Yep. And to everyone listening, thank you. And we'll talk to you again soon. Thank you so much for tuning into the episode. My name is Dylan Welch. Appreciate it. As always, stay up to date with the latest information on green.org and dylanwelch.com. Dylan Welch Media is a full-service media and communications agency dedicated to promoting, marketing, and helping businesses in clean tech, renewable energy, and sustainability grow, get more clients, get more customers, get in front of their ideal clientele. If you have any more questions, feel free to reach out. If you're interested in joining the Green Summit, go to www.green-summit.org. Reserve your ticket today. There's very few spots left, so make sure you get on that ASAP. Thank you and have a great rest of your day.